Welcome, welcome everybody. I'm just going to quickly get us sorted out here. I have a few things to just do as I'm getting this all set up, and then we'll be right in. I'm going to start off with the song, let some people roll in, and we'll get this stream or space underway. Thanks for your patience. You guys share the space. If someone wants to come hang out and learn, if you guys share the space, on the right there. All right. Let's get going. So as you guys probably remember from the last spaces, if you guys want to come up and ask questions after I have gone through my monologue, then please come on up. You can request the mic at any time. And before we get going, for those of you who are just joining, make sure you share this space out. Let people know that we're here. Let people know that we're talking about TORUS and Unity and how we're going to be going in super deep into the burn mechanics for both TORUS and Unity, what we're seeing right now in TORUS and what that's going to mean for Unity as well. This is going to be a really fun space. And I want you guys to be a part of it as well. So let's get going. Actually, give me 2 seconds here, and we're going to get going in just a moment. All right, let's do this. So, I'm going to do this space a little later today just to try out to see how the traffic is, see how participation is, and we'll see how it goes tonight. We might do the next one in the AM like we were previously doing around 10 a.m. But let's start off by talking about TORUS. Now, for those of you that are only in Unity or really don't know a whole lot about what TORUS is, or not really a big fan of TORUS being over on Titanx, I want you to just pay attention to everything that we're going to talk about today in terms of what this means for Unity. Okay, because it's really important. We're being shown the future for Unity, as well as TORUS is paving the way and just it's producing mind-boggling results. So the first thing I want to start off today is talking about there's a jump in the burned TORUS over the last day or so. Now, if you are on the dApps, if you want to go to TORUS.win/stats, you'll see what I'm talking about here. You scroll down just to the TORUS distribution into the supply stats. And you're going to see, and if you haven't, you probably wouldn't know if you haven't seen this before, but the number of TORUS burned, if you go to the Dune dashboard, I should say, is looking like 31.2%. Okay. Now, if we go to the TORUS dApp, we're now showing 34%. If we look at the numbers, the Dune dashboard is showing 43,135, but the dApp is now showing 49,496. That is over 6,000 extra TORUS. Now, you might be asking or wondering, why did it jump? It didn't jump, but what we've done, we realized that the UI, so the interface, the stats, were not actually reading what people were when stakes were ended early. 50% of all rewards that are taken as penalties are burned. And in the contract, it's done as in it's not minted. And so it wasn't being read by our stats as burned in quotations. But realizing this, we re-implemented this into the UI, so the interface, the supply stats. And what we now have realized is that in 62 days, it hasn't been 43,000 TORUS that's been burned. It's actually been 49,000 TORUS. So that means over the first 62 days, over 6,300 TORUS have been burned from early end stake penalties alone. Think about what that means for a moment. We're barely even started, and that feature has already taken almost 6% of what's the supply that's come out so far. It's just absolutely mind-bending to me. All of this being said, the 43,000 tokens that we see over the Dune dashboard versus 49. So that means 49,000 tokens have been burned, right? Cool. But the real reason I want to talk about this is because TORUS and Unity both have settings for their buy and burns. Now, what these settings are the amount of, for Unity, Pulse or PulseX, and then for TORUS, it's Titanx or ETH. When these tokens are deposited to participate in either protocol, there's a distribution that happens, right? You get 3.69 goes to Genesis, 4.31 burns the token it's built on top of. Then right now it's 64% gets sent to the buy and burn, and 28% is dedicated to buy and build because we're still in the liquidity phase, right? Like the white paper has said for quite some time now. So that means that the buy and burn is receiving 64% of all funds deposited into the system. Both TORUS and UNITY have the same thing. Not only that, but the daily spend, so the buy and burn, the settings for how much can be spent over the course of one day is set to 1% of the contract balance, which is the minimum. So just to be clear here, the minimum that both Unity and TORUS's buy and burns can be set to for the spending amount is 1% of the contract balance per day. That's the minimum. The minimum that TORUS and UNITY can be set to for their how much funds they receive is 64%. So not only, just focusing on TORUS for a second here, not only is TORUS receiving the least amount of funds it can ever receive, but it's also burning the least that it can ever burn simultaneously, which means these systems are incredibly overpowered in their burning ability, right? That means I guess it would almost be, because if there's 43,000 tokens that were burned, and we add another 6,000, that's coming up on like 7% of the total burned so far at its minimum settings has been from this EES, this emergency end state feature, right? So these burn statistics are going to get out of hand very, very quickly. And the reason I also wanted to bring this up today was because I've been seeing a lot of people in the Telegram groups, and I was as well. If you want to join the Telegram, please go. We have fantastic conversations. T.me/TORUSWin and T.me/UNITY.win. And one of the things I've been seeing in the chats, especially today actually, was talking about burning. And specifically, okay, you have two aspects of Unity and TORUS, right? You've got the Unity pool or the TORUS pool, which they're the same for other protocol. It's just the emissions of supply daily that decrease over time. Meaning on day one, there was 100,000 tokens up for grabs for anyone that participated in the system. The next day was 9,920 tokens that were up for grabs. And this decreases perpetually by 0.08%, meaning that by the 20th year of TORUS and UNITY, we're going to be just shy of 125 million tokens. And it never quite reaches 125 million. So this is for both TORUS and UNITY. But the big thing was talking about, okay, well, creation is also creating tokens, and it's bringing out supply from the TORUS and the UNITY pool. So what does that mean for supply? Is this thing uncapped? Is it going to get out of hand? And it was an interesting question because I've seen it come up quite often over the past few weeks since specifically Unity went live. Because it is so new to PulseChain versus, TitanX is used to similar mechanics happening over there. But for the PulseChain side of things, it's been, a little bit more new. So the first thing I want you all to understand, those of you who are listening here now, those of you who are listening on a recorded space as well, is that these created tokens are not uncapped. So on day one, for TORUS, 10 billion TitanX created 1,000 TORUS over the course of 88 days. If you went less, it created less. So this, though, becomes more and more difficult over time with the same amount of Pulse, or PulseX or TitanX, right, when you're inputting into Unity or TORUS. So by day, it's like around 880-ish. Instead of that 10 billion TitanX creating 1,000 TORUS, it's now creating only 500. So the whole system is scaling at 0.08% in difficulty over time. And so what this means is that it gets easier and easier, relatively speaking, for the system to, let's say, manage its own supply. Now, what I mean by that, why I'm saying that, is if we look at the economic energy that's coming into TORUS and UNITY, what I mean by economic energy is the Pulse or PulseX for UNITY, or the ETH or TitanX for the TORUS system. Now, any of those tokens that are put in, those are received by the system and they're used for various functions, right? If we add up all of the different burning capabilities of TORUS and UNITY, especially when we're out of this liquidity phase, the number of burned tokens should surpass the number of created tokens by quite a large margin. Now I'll break this down. So for all the burning capacities of the system, there is LP fees. So the contracts for both TORUS and UNITY both own the liquidity that is in the V3 contracts. Can't be removed, can't be changed, can only be added to. And the fees can only be collected. The UNITY and TORUS that are collected are burned. So for UNITY, 0.01% is burned of the total volume. For TORUS, 1%. Now, the other three mechanics are, of course, the buy and burn. We also have late claim penalties, which are from creations or stakes, as well as these early end stake penalties. And in TORUS, again, we've seen 6,000 of these early claim penalties that have already happened, right? So if we look at the total number of supply that's come out over the last 60 days in TORUS, there's been 20,000 that were minted on day one. There's been about 100. Let me just say exactly what this number is to date. So if we look today, we're day 62. So today, 62, we've had 131,000 tokens cumulatively unlocked. Now that includes what is created and what comes from the UNITY or TORUS pool. So we've had 131,000 that have come out so far, and 49,000 of those have already been burned. So we are far surpassing anything that created tokens could bring up. They're already burned. And we're only on day 62. So if you're thinking about this system, you're trying to understand how this is going to work over time. All of the settings of these systems right now are set so low in comparison to what they can be. And they're already keeping up with and overpowering not only the created supply, but what's coming out of the UNITY pool as well. So what happens when the buy and burn gets turned up? Well, again, these systems have minimum settings. We haven't talked about their maximum settings. So the buy and burn can actually be turned up from 64%, not just to 84%, but to 100%. The minimum contract balance that can be spent per day is 1%, but the maximum is 10% of the contract balance per day, right? So what that means is, and why I should say, the buy and burn can be turned up from 64% to 100% is all of these other pieces of these systems. You have the Genesis, you have the PulseX or TitanX burn, and then you also have the buy and build. Those maximum values are 3.69 for Genesis, 4.31 for the PulseX or TitanX burn, and the max that the buy and build can be set to is 28%. But those can all be set to 0 if need be, meaning the buy and burn receives all of the funds if those are turned to 0. There's no other way for those funds to go other than to the buy and burn if those are lower. They can't be rerouted to one another. They can't be, messed around with and you can't get creative with it. It's goes to the buy and burn or it goes where it's supposed to. And so in the future, if the system ever gets to a point where the liquidity is extremely thick, and what I mean by thick liquidity is the amount of dollars total that are in the liquidity pool that are both TitanX and TORUS for the TORUS side. So the combined amount of TORUS and TitanX tokens that has a dollar value right now, which is about 140,000, I believe it is. And for UNITY, it's the amount of UNITY and PulseX that are in its liquidity. So right now, UNITY has about 389,000. That is probably going to get a little lower as we start to correct here. We can already see things starting to correct a little bit as the supply has just begun to come up for UNITY. So, where was I going with this? Oh man, I lost my train of thought with the liquidity. But, right, sorry, there we are. So if liquidity in thickness in terms of dollars, so let's say the liquidity for both TORUS and UNITY get to a point where they're about, let's say, millions, 10 million, 100 million, just ridiculous amounts. And adding to liquidity is just a waste of money, right? It's like, it doesn't actually make a difference at this point. Turn the buy and build to 0. Boom. Now, the rest of the buy and build is rerouted to the buy and burn. PulseX or TitanX. Doesn't make sense to burn anymore because the price is too high. Turn that to 0. If there's a governance, or if there's a DAO at some point, or if Genesis is benevolent, or not benevolent, but just decides to just say, I don't want to receive any funds anymore, then both the PulseX and TitanX buy and burn, as well as Genesis, can also be set to 0, which means the buy and burn gets 100% of the funds. And at that point, it gets out of hand. So again, the point of me going on this rant is because as I watch people ask about the supply, and I also watch people ask about the sustainability of all this, you know, like, how is this going to survive? What do we need? New people? You know, they're all fair questions, and they all have the same answers. This system is overpowered. There's just, even if a ton of people walk away from these systems, right, it requires you to deposit funds into it. And the thing is, you know, being over in the TitanX ecosystem for a while and watching some new styles of protocols that new PulseChain hasn't quite seen so much of, one of the things that I noticed is where there is a % or 2 or 3 in ROI to be had, people will go for it. So you can imagine with this system, right, the way it works is that people not participating every single day that people don't participate as well in the future, the ROIs in the system for both creating and staking start to go up and up and up and up and up. So if people stop participating, someone's going to want to participate. If one person wants to participate, I can guarantee you there's 2, and so on. And then those people are going to input funds. They're going to send their TitanX or their PulseX or their Pulse or their ETH into the system. It's going to go ahead and begin to buy and burn, do whatever it needs to do to start to lift that price up. Then the whole system starts getting a little bit more valuable, right? The ROI goes up even higher. More people come. Can you see how that resetting goes? So this whole idea of needing new people, it's going to be this, or we need all this stuff to happen, otherwise it's going to be just like all the others. This system is so different than everything else. You have to throw everything out when you try to understand it. You cannot come here with a Hex mindset, with a PulseX mindset, with a TitanX mindset, or any mindset of any token you think you know. Reflection tokens. You have to check it at the door. You have to leave it there, and you have to learn a brand new system, because these are relationships that have never, and dynamics, I should say, relationships and dynamics that have never been seen before in this space. And there's an opportunity now to learn, to get ahead of the game. Because if you haven't noticed, there's a lot of people that know about Unity. There's a lot of people that know about Torus, and they're not talking about it. Not much. Just enough. Every once in a while, you see like Crypto Coffee will come out and talk about it. You know, I see a lot of people liking all the tweets that I post, but no one's talking about it. You know, and I wanted this system to be designed to create whales, not to feed them. So I applaud all of you that are here, that are listening, that are interested, because if this thing does what it's designed to do, then that could happen on a very wide scale. You know, I see a lot of familiar names in here, and I'm hoping some of you will come up and chat with me on what you've been seeing as well. But the burn power for Torus and Unity are completely overpowered on their own. And here's the thing. I'm going to go on a little bit of a tangent here, as if I haven't already gone on a 25-minute tangent. What we're talking about right now in terms of sustainability, the burn rate, most of this is surrounding the creation mechanic. What we're not focusing on, and what I don't see people focusing on or even thinking about, is the power that staking has. Staking is by far the most powerful mechanic in the system. So if people are wondering, well, what happens if the price stays low? Well, it burns more PulseX, it takes in more PulseX, and it gets more extreme. Everything gets out of hand. You know, I'll break that down a little bit more, but this is the way Torus was designed, was that it's strongest when its price goes lower, not when its price goes higher. The high price of Unity right now is real cool, but when we're on this side of the price chart, selling is incentivized, right? Bull markets are for selling, bear markets are for buying. At least in this system, you compound during a bull market or high prices, and you buy and compound during the lower prices, right? And there's a lot more to that, but essentially, this is the basics of it. So what happens though is when staking is the only viable way in the system and the difficulty is scaling over time, a number of pretty crazy dynamics start to kind of come together. So if you want to understand how powerful staking could be, you have to look in the Unity app right now, and you have to go to the earn page, go to staking, and follow me into this rabbit hole I'm going to take you guys on. So currently, if you want to stake 982, actually let's go to 1,000. Let's just type in 1,000 here. 1,000 Unity. So on day one, right, you could take 1,000 Unity and it would only cost you 5 million PulseX. Now, currently, if I refresh this, that same 5 million PulseX will only get you allow you to stake 982.53 Unity. So we're coming down significantly, or should I say the difficulty is going up, which means that currently for every 982.5 Unity in supply, that 982.5 Unity can bring in 5 million PulseX. So if we go ahead and we say, okay, well, we know around day 100-ish, there's going to be around 10 million tokens, right? And, excuse me, and the number of Unity that can be staked then for 5 million is around 946, if I remember correctly. So what we would then do, if we want to find out how powerful staking is, we would go 10 million. So we go 10 million, and then we would divide that by 946. And that means there's 10,570 instances of these 946 staked Unity that costs 5 million, right? At that time. And the reason I'm going here is because I'm going to get somewhere. Just stick with me here. So again, we've taken the 10,000, right? Or 10 million. We know that there's going to be basically 5 million is going to allow you to stake, or 5 million PulseX is going to allow you to stake 946. So how many instances of 946 are there in 10 million, where there's 10,570.8? So now if we multiply that by 5 million, we get 52 billion. 52.8 billion PulseX would be required to stake that whole 10 million supply. Are you following me on this? If this is sticking, give me some emojis or something. I want to see people. And also, guys, if you want to come up and ask questions to clarify this, please do. Because this is about you guys understanding it, not me just talking. I'm talking from a place that I know how to explain it, but I also want to cater it, depending on the questions that you have, to actually make sure that you guys are understanding here. So let me just wait a second to see if anyone it's an emoji going or some kind of reaction. I don't see anyone. Okay, yep. Cool. I see one. Okay, so everyone else is confused, but Inspired is doing fantastic. Awesome. So I'm just going to continue. And again, for anyone see max sliders, good, cool. Okay, right on. So let's keep going here. So again, we have a couple things that are going on. right now, the entire Unity supply, right, as of what day are we on? I think 22, is it? 23. So day 23's cumulative supply, right, is 2,090 plus, so 22,000. If we go to the Unity page, we can see the total supply by going to the stats. So we can see that there's 15,000 currently in supply, which means that staking is going to bring in very little, because right now, if you wanted to stake the total supply, the total liquid supply, the amount of Unity that the DApp could bring, or the amount of PulseX that Unity could bring in is going to be essentially 15,000 divided by 982.5. It's going to be like 17, 18, maybe 20 times total, which for staking is not a lot. But what happens is, as the difficulty, even if the supply was only going to be 15,000 forever, eventually, right, instead of it just being like 18 instances that can go into 15,000 of 982, eventually when this is 500, now that could go into 15,000 30 times, right? So that means that the amount of PulseX would double that the supply could actually bring in. That same supply could now bring in twice the amount of PulseX, just because of the difficulty going up, right? So this is incredibly important to understand, because over time, two things are happening. One, the supply is expanding, right? Remember, we have a 125 million token supply that is going to come out over 20 years, right? So that means as the supply is expanding, for every token that comes into supply can bring in more Pulse or PulseX via staking, right? Simultaneously, each one of those tokens costs more and more in Pulse or PulseX or in TitanX or ETH in the TORUS system to stake, which means there's not enough TitanX and there's not enough PulseX. And when it comes to the burning that we're talking about today, I mean, in a 52 billion pull, let's say in 10 million tokens, 52.8 tokens, 52.8 billion tokens came in, right? If we, let's just see here, so multiplied by 0.0431, 2.2 billion tokens would be burned instantly for PulseX. 2.2 billion instantly. We've been 23 days and we haven't quite reached 2 billion yet. We're at 1.78, I think, or 1.8 for Unity. And everything that I'm talking about matters, is the same for TORUS as well. So when it comes to answering the question of, can these systems handle the created tokens? Can they handle the Unity supply? How are these sustainable? They're overpowered. Simple as that. There's never been a protocol that has had the mechanics designed in such a way that there's literally not enough of the tokens that they're built on to actually, continue to let everything burn and burn and burn forever. At some point, there probably will come a time when it actually will make sense to turn that burn off, because it will just take in so much supply and then burn it that we need to keep some supply at some point. And this is also why Pulse and ETH are used, because as those supply numbers dwindle and pressure is put on these TitanX or PulseX, you have these other tokens that people can still get and use, right, if they can't get PulseX or TitanX. So I hope this is making sense, guys. It's been a 35-minute monologue, and I would love to hear from you guys. So I'm just going to start inviting people up, and I want you guys to hang out. I want to hear from you guys if this is making sense, if this is going over your head, if this is this makes you bullish, this makes you bearish. As my friend Fast Abdul would say, tell me your secrets. Let me just go through a few more. Cool. All right, got a couple guys coming up. Give me just one moment. Gentlemen, or ladies and gentlemen, welcome. I'm going to go to Max first, but welcome. How you doing, Max?
I'm doing pretty good. How's everybody tonight?
Great, man. Good to have you. What's going on?
Hi. Not much. I'm glad you were talking about the staking because the idea I had when I started with TORUS, as things have shifted, I've had to shift that strategy, and now I'm looking more at the staking because, that's where the ROI is, exactly what you're saying. I was fiddling with the numbers, and I was like, so if max supply is 125 million in 20 years, how much does that cost today to stake? I'm like, that's so ridiculous when I looked at how much Typenex it took, and you explained it all right there, I guess, for me, if that made any sense.
Yeah, so you took the end supply and just looked at the difficulty right now and how much that would bring in, right?
Yeah, see, I was like, if I could get to 120, 1.25 million, that would be 1%, right? And if I wanted to stake that perpetually, and just to start off today, it would be like $450,000 just to stake that amount. So I don't know what it would be when that amount was out, but if somebody can accumulate 1.25 million Taurus, it's a ridiculous amount of money to stake it.
Well,
But they'd make a ridiculous amount in return, especially with their shares. But
well, and that's the thing is it gets quite difficult over time. That's by design, because what happens is, right, you've got a couple different things that are happening. Over time, there's so many tokens coming out that the pool can get diluted, right? So
yeah,
what ends up happening at some point, there will be a turning point where it becomes like there's a tipping point. It'll literally be a tipping point where people will decide to not go into Torus or not go into Unity, to go elsewhere, to go to liquidity providing, to do some lending, to do this, to do that, to play with other things, right? And utilize Torus or Unity for other opportunities if the ROI is getting too low. And then what happens is, as more and more people do this, or it gets more and more expensive, less people end up actually going into the pool, which actually makes the pool worth more, which draws potentially a different crowd into the mix, which is what I've been saying all along. It's like, I want the people to get into this token, and by the end, when this tipping point happens, this blossom, if you think about a torus, a toroidal field, right? You have this wide ring that comes around, goes up through the center, and that's the tipping point. It comes up to the center, and as it comes back around and explodes out the top, that's the shift now to, instead of the people going in so much, people have already made money, right? People can go in for a small amount of yield, great. But now the institutions are the ones that are going to fight for the scraps. And they're only going to be fighting for like a handful of Taurus a day, like 5, 10, 20, if that, right? So this is all by design too. So if you were to scale this out and say, okay, how much would 1.25 million Taurus or Unity be able, or cost to stake out in, like, let's say 2,000 days? You're not going to like the number. It's expensive. But that's by design to make sure that the whole pool stays, what's the word for it? Stays enticing, let's say, right? And this also works too if there's other opportunities that are there. So anyways, I'm kind of monologuing now, but yeah, I wanted to put that to add to your thought process there as well.
no problem at all. I appreciate that. Yeah, I saw that it would be ridiculous to try to stake that much, but I do appreciate the staking mechanism. I'll be utilizing that soon. I was planning on, I think if you remember, I created a whole bunch of creates to go 88 days, and I tried to create one that came out early to see if I could compound it. but that's not going to work the way I wanted. I already looked. But staking is the better option, which is, I guess, how you designed it, which is excellent, by the way, because
Well,
now
I
I'm a
want to ask
staking
you,
guy.
can I ask you about this? Because I want to find out what's exactly happening. So you went 88-day creations and you went a shorter creation, right? And then what do you mean that the staking has been better?
I know. Okay, so I'll slow it down. So going through the Titan X ecosystem, I've done a couple of them, and I watched how different people manage to do better than others. Um, Coming out shorter, but some people making more going longer. So I tried to do a whole bunch of the full term, and one that didn't go as long so I could get out before the price eventually dropped because people are going to sell when that massive amount comes out. So I figured if I got out a little early, I'd have accumulated more money. So when it dropped down, I just buy them all back and create and compound it that way, get more shares while they're coming out and I'm going back in. But the price got low enough now to where I would have more shares if I stake than I would if I sold the Taurus, bought Titan X, and came back through for the creates. That
Gotcha.
makes sense?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. 100%. Yeah,
But
that's
without you building it the way you did, I would never look at staking because I staked my Shiba Inu and it blew up and I couldn't get it. It's like,
brutal.
I, oh, yes, yes, it was. But that's why I normally am not a staker, but your project here makes me a staker. I mean, I appreciate it actually. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, it's cool to hear you say that. I mean, it's funny too because like staking normally has like its own thing where you're earning one specific token. Like even protocols that have a mining or a minting function and a staking, you're fighting for one thing in staking, you're fighting for another thing in um, in minting or mining or whatever it is, right? But this is this is a different take on staking because it's shorter. There's a cost, and you're competing with potentially different participants getting in a different market conditions, which could actually make adds different dynamics into it. I don't know how else to say this. So it's a very different kind of staking protocol, um, all around. So I'm thrilled that you're loving it and that you're actually wanting to stake and you're feeling like comfortable enough to stake another token after your Shiba Inu debacle. I'm sorry about that, by the way. It sucks.
Oh no, it's all right. I mean, I learned. I mean, I still made some off of Shiba Inu, but it was definitely not as much as it could be. I had like 15 days, and then it started coming back down. I was like, oh. But no, I do appreciate it. One of the interesting things is all the I don't want to call them day traders, but instant gratification type people going in and out of your early stake option. That's going to be interesting to watch as time goes. I'm sure there's going to be a whole bunch of them. I think they have plans.
Yeah. Well, we've already seen so many early end stakes on Taurus that over 6,000 tokens have been burned, which is crazy. That's quite a bit of early end staking. And I'm sure because Unity, there's a lot of people that also staked. If we go to Unity right now and we look at the DApp, oh boy, let's see here. 6,100 Unity are currently staked. And it would not shock me if a good number of those, if the prices stay somewhat high, do some EESing or some early end staking. That wouldn't shock me at all. And Paul. It's funny. It's so interesting to watch these different communities interact with Unity versus Taurus and Taurus versus Unity. Um, I want to go to Blackthorn for a sec here and welcome you up, man. Welcome Blackthorn. want to touch base with you, see what's on your mind, and also, are you only on the PulseChain side, or have you been in both TORUS and UNITY?
Just Unity. I looked at TORUS, I followed it, and I thought that's really interesting. But I didn't feel like I understood it enough, so I kind of stood back. But I figured I'd have a second chance when Unity came around. So I put, I don't know, I don't remember it's probably around $3,500 worth of PulseX in it, from day one. And it's, it has some massive ROA, which I have a feeling it's going to drop pretty hard, but even if it's a tenth of that, it'd still be really great. But my goal is to take it, and as soon as it mints out, just put it into a stake. Cause I don't really need to pull the money. I'm looking to compound my funds, not pull for any other purpose. So my question on the stake is, let's say day 88, I was a day one Unity. I pull out day 88, I claim and then I stake. At the end of the stake period, do you have to claim, or can you early end stake, or can you, good accounting that, something like that? And can you just leave it, or you have to do something with it?
So yes, you can early end stake before the end date of your claim, but once you hit that date, you have 14 days to end your stake penalty free. And if you don't in those 14 days, the following 7 days will have penalties that if you go all 7 days after the 14-day grace period, you'll lose all of your rewards, but you'll never lose your stakes tokens or what you've created in terms of principal. But you will lose tokens if you go into that 7-day period after the grace period, 14 days.
Is it the same thing on the create too? Because I did a few creates. I had a one massive create, and I did a few small creates as I had, funds come in. On the create side, they're all within a 10-day period. Can I wait till 10 day and then claim them all at once? Or should I take the big one first at the beginning so I don't get dinged? Or is that it's still a 14-day period?
It's still a 14-day period for both. So if you wanted to do that, absolutely. Like strategically, you're potentially giving up 10 days of earning by doing that. But if it's totally cool with you, it makes no sense then, right? Because that's something to consider with that if you're waiting, right?
You're right. And the gas fees are so cheap on PulseChain that why wait?
Yeah, exactly. It's a hard argument to wait when it comes to laddering out, right? And that way you can kind of build your ladder if you want to too, potentially, if that's kind of what you're into.
Is there any reason why, I had this thing on PulseChain where it's dropping me, PulseX every day. And so I get, 150,000 PulseX every day. Is there any reason why I couldn't just create every single day? Or is there a reason, or should I let it stack up and then to a bigger create, or does that not matter?
Well, every day that you go in with a little bit of funds, like if you're waiting till you have a certain threshold to go in, you're not earning as much as you could have, right? Because cumulatively speaking, right, you're going to put in the same amount of PulseX as you would have by waiting, but each day that you're going in with that little bit, each small portion gets you slightly more shares than the next day. So you're effectively DCAing in, creating a nice ladder, and this gives you time to, not have to plan for one day. You can, that could be a really interesting way to compound, with small amounts that are coming in daily, actually. I think that could be quite powerful.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it's a protocol. I won't mention it here, but it drops me about 150,000 PulseX a day. And so I was thinking I'd wait till every Saturday and do another create. But if you're saying, why wait? Just do it every day. Now that I think about it, it's just the gas fees. They're so cheap, I don't really care. Okay, cool. Interesting. Thank you.
Of course. Yeah, thanks for the questions.
I guess the question would be, let's say the bull run happens and we're out by, I don't know, February, March, when everyone's speculating when that happens. and the prices all crash. But what happens in your Unity / Torus? What happens? How does the system adjust to that? Is it that's when staking makes more sense, or what do you think?
Well, this is where things get really interesting, and I don't. There is no answer because there's so much at play during that time.
Mm-hmm.
It depends on the size of the buy-in burns. It depends on participation. It depends on a number of things. So once there's a ton of scenarios. If PulseX is coming down in price and it's really affecting Unity, or TitanX is really coming down, it's affecting Torus, the threshold that Unity or Torus has, so remember that floor ratio, so on day one for Unity it's 100,000 PulseX to 1. For Torus it was 10 million. That's both of those are going up at the same rate. So what this means is when we get to this top, right, it's not just plummet city. It is the price can retrace, but staking is going to come into effect as the dominant aspect of Torus and Unity at much higher ratios than we currently have them relative to TitanX or PulseX. So this means that even though PulseX is going down, we can still have periods of both staking and creation that are simultaneously like oscillating back and forth as we're coming down. So there's no guarantee of anything. I mean, when we're at the top of the bull market, there's going to be people selling, there's going to be people still buying, there's going to be people still buying all the way down thinking the bull market's not over. There's going to be, it's going to be mayhem. And there's nothing really that I can say that's going to be bang on. No one's going to be able to really predict it, but the system is designed to allow itself to rebound. It's all the same mechanics that we see here are going to be at play, but it's going to be interesting because we're going to go from a high with like PulseX, TitanX, ETH, and be coming down, and that's going to be new territory. See how Torus and Unity behave, but all the same mechanics, all the same dynamics and relationships are all still there that are going to allow the systems to operate quite smooth and allow people to just go in and stake or possibly even create during that time. Because PulseX could be going down, TitanX could be going down. The buy and burn could be freaking huge by the top of the bull run because everyone's just been FOMOing into these protocols. And so when people are staking, they're locking up the tokens and there's not much on supply on the market. So the buy and burn's just pushing up these tokens like crazy, and then creation starts happening again. And it could be that cycle the whole way down to a local bottom for Unity and for Torus. But it's the only answer I can give. I know it's vague and it's not really anything, but it's more just the specifics of how it works is like what I can give you on that.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. When you said the buy burn could be huge, how does the buy burn trigger? Is there someone controlling that?
So anyone can, if you go to the Unity dApp or the Torus dApp, you go to the burn page, you'll see there's a button below the buy and burn that says trigger buy and burn. Anyone can click that, either one. And it's available to be clicked every 10 minutes. So there's a reward there as well. And on Pulse, obviously, it's going to almost always be pretty high reward because of how cheap the fees are. In a bull market, it might actually be quite different, but essentially, that's not the point, is that anyone can click these buttons to trigger the buy and burn. And the way the buy and burn works is there is settings, there's a minimum setting and a maximum setting of the daily contract balance that can be spent. So what I mean by that is in the buy and burn right now for PulseX, there's $305,000. The buy and burn is currently set to 1%, meaning over the course of 24 hours, and if you divide 24 hours up in 10-minute segments, there's 144 of these call amounts every 10 minutes. $3,054 is going to be used over the course of that entire day in 10-minute and $21.21 chunks, right? So let's say that the buy and burn, let's say PulseX does 1,000x, right? It goes to the moon. And we have like 100 billion, or maybe even like 50 billion PulseX in the buy and burn. Well, we're going to be sitting on an enormous amount of PulseX. That's not even including Pulse, right? So let's say we're sitting on, let's go crazy, right? Let's say we're sitting on $100 million of PulseX. Even at the minimum settings of 1% spend of the contract balance, that's still let's say it's 100 million, it's still $1 million a day that's being spent to just buy and burn. It's insane. That doesn't include Pulse. That's me guessing the amount. We could have 100 billion, we have 200 billion, we could have 20 billion. I don't know. So if it's huge though, like if we have a ton of PulseX and Pulse in the buy and burn for like 100 or 200 or 300 million, or if we have 300 or 400 million dollars cumulatively in the buy and burn because everything is just going absolutely bananas, right? Then you have $3 or $4 million a day minimum that can be spent. Has to be. Cannot not be. Cannot not be spent.
Okay. Okay, cool. I get it. All right. Thank you. I don't really have much else to share. But I think I'll do the daily creates, just because that makes sense to play.
Right on, man.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay. Questions? Yeah. Anytime. Anytime. Max, what are you thinking? You have anything else that you're thinking of since we've been chatting?
No, I'm enjoying listening. All the ideas. I have so much to think about. Most of my everything was pretty much 88 days, so I still got some time. But thank you for having me up.
My pleasure. Appreciate both you guys.
Yes, sir.
Let me go to the chat here real quick. Not the chat, but the all you here in the space as well. Come on up, guys. I want to hear from you. And if no one's wanting to come up, we've already been doing this for an hour, which has been fantastic. But yeah, I'm going to invite a few people that I see here. And do this and this. Bada boom. All right, let's see if anyone else comes up now. And if I didn't invite you and you want to come up, just send me a request. Love to have you up. Any questions are welcome. Would love to chat about Torus. Would love to chat about Unity or anything we've already been talking about specific to either of them. I know it's going to be so cool to watch the community, you all start to understand as time goes on just exactly how these systems are designed to operate and their power, because right now we're just getting glimpses of them. You know, Torus being only 60 some odd days old. It's blowing my mind at how resilient it's been. You know, if we go look at the price for Torus, USD wise, it's been literally flatline sideways over the last, what is this, since the beginning of July? Sorry, end of August. It's just been flatline sideways. You know, and we've had a ton of supply that's come out for Torus specifically, and it's still at 7.62 million to 1, where its median ratio is 10.4, I think it is, 10.4, almost 10.5 million. And we've had, where is it here? 62. Yeah, we've had like 140 some odd, 143,000 tokens come out, and the price is going sideways. What's interesting to look at too is that if you go to the Torus chart on Deck Screener and you look at the buys, there's been an interestingly large amount of, well, over the last few days, there's been a $6,000 buy, $1,300 buy, $2,200 buy, and $1,900 buy over the last couple of days. If we go 3 days back, we have another $5,000 buy, and this is showing people are still buying. And even though it doesn't seem like a lot, in conjunction with the buy and burn, it's insanely powerful. It really is. Let me see here. I see Mr. Superman's here, so I'm going to invite him. I think I approved Mr. Smoke as well. Just waiting for him to load up on my screen. Not sure if it's working or not. All right, let me try again. Hold on, he just left and came out. Let me try one more time here. Let me. Where'd he go? It's not working. All right. No sweat. Anyways, though, we've been going on for an hour. If anyone wants to come up, great. last call. If not, I am more than happy to end this space, wind it down, and start winding down for the night. I'll wait for Mr. Smoke to come on up. Invited him, invited you, Mr. Superman. There we go. So weird. Sometimes it doesn't actually. Oh, no. X is buggy. Hey, Superman. What's going on?
Good to be here. Man, congrats again. I mean, it's everything's going fantastic.
Thanks, man. Yeah, I have nothing to say at this point. I'm just watching this like, wow.
Yeah. Awesome stuff. So I hope everyone's enjoying Unity and TORUS. Really doing some amazing things. It's funny. It's funny to watch the phases. I've kind of put it into 4 different phases, and kind of TORUS is ahead of Unity. It's kind of in terms of the phasing, so it's really fun to see.
Yeah, what are you seeing as the phases? Very curious.
Well, just sort of the first phase before there's a lot of supply out, and then the second phase when supply is sort of coming out, and then the third phase is when we get up to like the day 89, and then the fourth phase is like a month after. It's like a month after that phase, and it's really fun to see it go through basically, a phase. I think Unity's just coming out of phase 1 today, day 23, I think it is, and then into phase 2, and of course TORUS is already in phase 2. So it's really fun to see this, the cleverness of your mathematics and the staking protocol. Really it's just cool to see that all play out, and then the supply and demand adjust and the staking get picked up, swapping over from creating to staking. It really is really, really cool to see.
It really does blow my mind that it's as simple as just allowing 2 options and putting a big number for the low side of the market and a big number when the market's up can create decision making to stay in the it's been fascinating to watch the psychology of it, to see how just having one number that stays stable psychologically, it makes people want to go back in the system. I don't know if you've had any more thoughts about that, but it's been a really big thing for me of understanding just psychology and incentive and watching that in real time. Do you have any thoughts on that or anything you've been thinking about?
Yeah, I do. Like I say, I was really excited when I first saw, the flipping into staking yield, particularly over on TORUS. And then people start to stake, and all those stake numbers are really, really big, really exciting. It's been really cool. And I think pushing a bit further field into phase 3 and 4, as I outlined, as my view of the world, is to see market makers come in. And that's going to be really interesting. So, yeah, in terms of getting, there'll be a lot of volume out there, and then, people, there'll be a bit of a switching hands, possibly. We'll see. Maybe there won't be as much as people think, and then there'll be a lot more staking as well. So, yeah, it's just fun. I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, I love it, man. It's really fun. There's so many new things about it that are really exciting to watch. And one of the things that I've been thinking about the last while as well is I'm very curious to see, when this thing becomes, a normal household name, whether it's in just the PulseChain community or the Titanx community or a little bit wider, or maybe a bigger token like, its design intent was. Really curious to see what people build to take this type of system and, expand on it. Because this is kind of like the first go, right? And maybe there's improvements that can be done. Maybe we'll watch this thing for a year or 2 or 3 and we're like, oh, you could do this, or you could do that, or you could change the supply to do this, you could change the staking to do that, or do this with the creation, reduce the supply. There's a whole myriad of things that you can potentially do with this system. So, man, I'm really curious to see how that goes. So I have a feeling there's going to be other protocols that will come out that are going to be similar, and to me, that's exciting as well.
Yeah, it is. It was really cool. I saw obviously Jake Sharp posting again the other day. Saw a little bit of lift in the Titanx ratio to ETH as well. That was kind of cool. And then the impact on, TORUS in particular. That was pretty fun. Just a little taste of perhaps of what's coming. Obviously super excited about Q4 and how that just a general, ETH crypto market, PulseChain go for both Unity and TORUS. On top of that, it's really fun, man. This is going to be great. I don't know if you've mentioned anything about you've got another project coming down the line. I don't know if you've been talking about that recently. Have you got any update on that at all?
Which are you specifically referring to?
You've got the NFTs, right? So the
right.
Yeah.
So I'm not announcing anything quite yet. The orbs are there.
Orbs, yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know when that will be announced, but we've been even having conversations about when that might be. When's the right time to do it? Might be sooner, might be later. I don't know. Also, part of the thing is I don't want people to go and start building stuff, and then they're halfway through, and then we come out with something that we've announced, and now it's like they're going to be competing with the main protocol, and it's like they've already spent a bunch of money on devs and stuff like that, and I don't want it to happen. So I would like to get it later, but there's got to be within reason.
Yeah, at the moment we're just loving the Unity and the TORUS are playing out real nice, and just savoring all that. Yeah, so when it comes, it comes. It'll be at the right time, I'm sure. So. All right, cool. I appreciate having me up on the speaker. I'm going to bounce out and keep up the great work, everybody. It's exciting. Future's exciting for Unity and TORUS for sure. So game on, as I say. Thanks,
Superman. Enjoy your day, man. Appreciate you.
And I love your show, by the way, man. I always try to tune in every now and then. But I had a question about the fractal. So every 110 days, I'm assuming that it takes is that the 0.25% that is put into that pool, or where does that come from?
It's a great question. So the buy and burn has like a little bit of a split in it per se. So 64% of the funds right now go to the buy and burn, right? That come in for Pulse, PulseX, or for Titan X or ETH when it comes in either protocol. Of that 64%, like basically just over a quarter of those funds are directed to the fractal for the day one test.
Okay, that makes sense. So it will just go into the buy and burn, correct? But not the buy and create. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's just going to burn. Yeah, exactly.
So I was wondering, I don't know what people are going to do once their 88s or their stakes end, but if there was a way that we can like have some type of validator that we can validate for 110 days and then take those rewards and put them to a buy and build, so that you got the fractal that's doing awesome, but then also to continue to build the liquidity, you use like validator rewards. I don't want to throw any of those PulseChain validators out there because this is your space, but I'm sure you're aware of them. And if you're getting 11, 12, 15% just by validating, maybe that could be used to build the liquidity along with continuing to buy and burn. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's an interesting idea. The only thing that I can say is that these are immutable contracts, and they're designed, to only to operate in the way there's no flexibility in these contracts. If someone wanted to create something where, it was a proxy for, let's say, I guess, how would you do that? I don't actually know if you could do it in a way that was like a proxy contract. You have to almost have it set from the beginning to have some kind of routing. But right now, everything is set in stone as it needs to be. And go for it.
I was thinking, of course I do one of the validators. And the only problem is most of the liquidity. Now, I wouldn't say it's a problem, but 9mm holds most of the Unity liquidity. Is that correct?
Yep.
So the validator that I use, the one-click validator that I use, I think that you could set up where it automatically buys back Unity, but it'll only do it from PulseX's liquidity pool. And I see a little bit of liquidity over on PulseX, but I don't see enough to buy enough back to make a dent. So I'm just trying to think how I can continue to build this up long term, because there's going to be volatility. The price will drop down and probably go back up. You're going to have fudders come out saying they told you so. You should have just held these tokens. We know the game, but the more we can make the floor higher and make it so that we can get results, maybe we get back to the old Hex days where we had people making videos every day showing results, being positive, and making it so that new people that got the devices, they actually can come in and benefit off of a protocol and gain some knowledge and some wealth behind this protocol. So that's my overall goal. Not trying to just pump and dump or get in and get out, trying to be in this long term. I see the vision. So anything that can help. Also, maybe like if there was a way that someone could build a raffle for people that create 88-day mints and also 88-day stakes so that they could gain real world assets, maybe gift cards or gym memberships, or just throwing this out there for people that want this to last the 20 years plus and want to go to their friends or family members and say, hey, this is a protocol that you can get in on PulseChain. You can create, you can stake, you can be here long term, and you have a peace of mind of knowing that it's going to be here down the line for you when you need to cash out and pay some real world bills or do some real world activities. Sorry, I like to yap.
No, it's cool. I like where your head's at. For one, to me, it shows, and I've been noticing this, like I love hearing these ideas because at the minimum, it shows me that you care enough to think about how can we expand on this to give it some more value, to bring in more people, how can we make it more enticing, and I love that. So I'm all ears all the time. Doesn't mean everything's gonna get built, I think, it's not about that. I think it's more about people are listening, and you never know who's going to be in the call. And I mean, someone can build it, but putting these ideas all out on the table, eventually maybe something sticks enough where it's like, okay, someone hears that and they build it. So at minimum, I appreciate you for sharing for that. And I like the ideas. They're smart, If there was flexibility, maybe those could be implemented in terms of using validators and all that stuff. And simultaneously, when I look at what we've built, it's already going to be so overpowered that as much as it sounds like it's great, and it would be great. It doesn't honestly need it. It's going to take time to show just exactly what I'm talking about. But even without the validator stuff, even without adding to liquidity, even out this or that, man, it's going to be nuts. I do like the idea of, having a raffle or something like that. I mean, we talked about that in the Titan X side quite a while ago. So I don't know if anyone's listening in here that is a builder, but those could be some really great ideas. Be a lot of fun too. People like to have fun and, earn and do. It's like maybe a perfect place to have a little bit of fun and be earning over 88 days and so on and so forth. So that could be a good combination.
Right. And that way people to always keep coming back to your protocol. I think a lot of times, it's just stake and then what else are you doing? Or, buy the tokens and hold them and hope they go up. If we could create some engagement and not become a bigger community, but just say, hey man, this is fun. It's more stuff to post. It's more memes to post. It's more excitement behind it. You know, people will tend to say, you know, let me check this out. Let me throw a couple of dollars in there. Let me spread the word to my friends and family. If we were giving away, like if you go to Lingo on PulseChain and you see how they have their raffles, I think if someone's trying to build it, that's a good starting point to look at. Not saying they're great or anything like that, but it's a good starting point to look at because they have the giving away a Rolex or a brand new car or house or vacation, those type of things. And even though I don't have a lot of lingo, I do go in and try to put a raffle in and see if I can win one of those prizes. So I feel like, you know, Unity would benefit from that. And I appreciate you taking my feedback. I'm going to fall back now. I've been out doing yard work, so my allergies are killing me. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Yeah, my pleasure, man. I appreciate you coming up and hanging. All these are seeds planted, and we'll see how these seeds grow over time. You never know, right? So there's no harm in planting seeds. No worst. So I think on that note, though, this is a great place to end. And yeah, thanks everyone for being here. Again, if you've been enjoying the space, make sure you're following myself. Make sure you're following TORUS.win. Make sure you're following UNITY.win here on X. And make sure you're in the Telegram groups, t.me/TORUS.win or t.me/UNITY.win, as well as share this out. You know, let people know that you enjoy the space. Tell people about it. And welcome to the age of TORUS on Ethereum and the age of Unity on PulseChain. Thanks, everyone. Have a wonderful night. Peace.